Friday in the Georgia Dome, Alabama brought it home. The 24th SEC championship in school history with a stirring 42-13 win over Missouri, earning Alabama a berth in the inaugural college football playoffs. Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider TV. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris. Our program, as always, brought to you by Buffalo Rock, proud bottlers of Pepsi Cola products, just like 60-calorie Pepsi Next. Sound effect, BJ. All right, James. I've been told that's James Rossi's fault. James, don't ever leave me without the sound effect again. I'll have to do it myself.
There it is.
There it is. Oh, that's good stuff. Pick up some Pepsi products the next time you're at your local grocer. All right, Rodney, another trophy for the trophy case, and it's a crowded one at Alabama. The Tide wins its third SEC championship under Nick Saban. Let's discuss this game. Interesting game, as we talked about last week. Give Missouri credit. I mean, you know, people take shots at them all the time, but they got to Atlanta for the second straight year. They were a hungry football team after losing last year to Auburn, but Alabama jumped on them early. They, you know, put a little comeback together, 10 straight points in the third quarter, and suddenly it was 21-13. But as Alabama has done all year, they answered when the other team challenged. Blake Sims coming up big. That man, DeAndrew White, the running game was top-notch. And even defensively, and hey, you can't take them out of the game, I understand that. But Missouri's 13 points came off pretty much Hail Mary-type throws that led to points. The defense just smothered their running game and really, I thought, was one of the better defensive efforts of the season. So a complete, total team win.
Yeah. You know, we told you last week at times Missouri has struggled this year offensively. You know, they had won 6 games down the stretch. Their offense had made some plays later in the season. But, you know, when you're talking about Alabama had 28 first downs, Missouri had 10. Alabama pretty much dominated the game, over 500 yards of offense. Now, this is a Missouri defense that was really good. I mean, no SEC team had over 400 yards against this Missouri defense. Alabama racks up, you know, 504 yards. You know, Derrick Henry has a big day. And what about Blake Sims? Again, another phenomenal performance.
Yeah, they hadn't given up 400. They gave up over 500 to the Tide. All right, we were there in Atlanta. Here's what the players and coaches had to say post-game.
Tell you what, it's a significant accomplishment. I've been in this league for a long time. It's tough to win. It's tough to win in your division, and it's tough to win in this game. And you got to give Missouri's team a lot of credit. They had a great year. They did a great job of battling back in the third quarter when they could have, you know, sort of said, I don't know if we can win this game. And it was a real credit to our guys to respond to that and take the game back over in the fourth quarter.
Feel great, man. I'm proud of our team, our coaches. You know, it just feel great, man. We got a long road ahead, though. You know, we don't know what's at stake right now. We just know that we put ourselves in a good position, you know.
We just know how to face adversity. You know, we know what to do. We've been in adversity before, and we just don't have anything else.
It feels great to win this tough conference. And, you know, we played a great team today, and I feel like we played our best game in the year, and we're ready to move on from here.
Alabama, we #1, and we still climbing.
Who was that, Alphonse Taylor?
Shane Taylor, yeah,
Alphonse.
he's a mess. All right, here is a look at the stats, and Alabama dominated the stat sheet. You see the numbers right there. Missouri, 313 yards of total offense, but as we alluded to, I mean, give Matty Mock credit. I mean, he was getting pressured. He gets out of the pocket. He throws it up. He creates. Their receivers made some plays, but they got 168 yards on 4 plays. Yeah. So that tells you about how dominant the defense, and really the Tide, excellent on third down themselves, 9 of 13, held Missouri to 6 of 16. And the one touchdown they gave up in the red zone was after one of those long passes. First and goal on the 2, and Missouri had to call timeout on 4th down and run a pick play out of the shotgun to score a touchdown. Now, it counts, but if they had tried to run the ball again, they'd gotten stoned again. The run defense was, again, it was just superb.
Well, I think what we saw was something that we had talked about all year, Gary. We talked about how dominant Alabama could be up front defensively as the season kind of progressed. We knew A'Shawn Robinson, once he kind of got going, that he was going to be outstanding. He had a dominant game with 9 tackles. You know, I have a hard time believing there's a team in the country that has 2 better interior defensive linemen than A'Shawn Robinson and Jaron Reed. And then on the outside, you have guys like Jonathan Allen, first-team All-SEC player, DJ Petway, a lot of depth. So Alabama on the defensive front really controlled the line of scrimmage.
You know, you mentioned Reed and A'Shawn Robinson, and I know this is Tider Insider TV, but former Auburn coach used to have a description of Nick Fairley. He said he played on the other side of the line of scrimmage, and he was right. Those two guys played on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And Missouri's got a pretty good offensive line, but they just destroyed their line. Again, Mock, give him credit, but he was running for his life back there. It's amazing he didn't get sacked, but that is a testament to his athletic ability.
And again, Xavier Dixon, Ryan Anderson certainly applied a lot of pressure. And, I thought other than, like you said, Gary, other than the Hail Mary balls that he kind of threw up and they found their way to the receiver, Alabama's defense really gave up nothing. It was a really pretty dominant performance.
Well, Rod, Nick Saban has said it a number of times this season. This year's team may not be the most talented that he's had at Alabama, but he loves its chemistry, and what can you say about its resiliency? That was a key theme after the game by coach and the players.
I always believe in this group. I always have believed in this group. I just ask them questions. And I asked the question after the Ole Miss game, how are you going to respond to a loss? We've only had one team that didn't lose a game. That's a very difficult thing to do. And I think they responded the right way.
Lost that first game against Ole Miss. We just took it upon ourselves and just said we're not going to lose anymore. Even if we had to crawl off the field, somebody had to pick us up off the stretches. We weren't losing no more games.
Well, you have to be relentless if you want to be a great team, so I'm just glad that we're able to be relentless and overcome things. We played in big games before. We've been here before, so it's nothing we haven't seen. So we just want to come out here and establish ourselves, and we came up with a W.
So it's a great win, not just because it's an SEC championship, and I like what Coach Saban said. SEC titles, they're special. So don't underestimate what that means to the team. But also, Alabama is now in the inaugural college football playoffs. Next on TITV, we'll get right into the Ohio State Buckeyes. Start to break them down. And speaking of the Buckeyes, they have a familiar man at the helm of their program. Yeah, that guy right there, Urban Meyer. Plus, Alabama got a big-time commitment yesterday. We will have that for you as well. Plus, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. There's the information on the screen, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us, TITV@WVUATV.com, or reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag TiderInsiderTV. The holidays in NYC, you can't beat it, and it's becoming a regular trip for members of the Alabama football team. Wide receiver Amari Cooper becomes Alabama's fourth Heisman Trophy finalist in 6 years. He'll join Marcus Mariota of Oregon and Melvin Gordon of Wisconsin in New York City this Saturday. He was also named the Offensive Player of the Year by the Southeastern Conference, and boy, has he had a special season. Amari owns the SEC championship game record now for receptions with 12. And has a lot of the Alabama records, practically all of them. Well, with the win on Saturday, Alabama not only won its 24th SEC championship, but the Tide clinched the #1 seed in the very first college football playoffs. Here are the final rankings. Alabama at the top, Oregon second out of the Pac-12. They'll face undefeated Florida State, the ACC champ, and Ohio State demolished Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game to leapfrog TCU and Baylor. So there is a look at the entire playoff with the first two out as well. Well, Rodney, let's start talking about what's up for Alabama. And first of all, you don't think that Alabama's used to this? Kind of a golf clap when they got the news that they were the #1 seed and would play Ohio State. But, you talk about tradition, these two schools have it. You talk about a head coaching rivalry, these two have it, from Meyer versus Saban in the Florida days. You talk about great tradition with coaches, Woody Hayes versus Bear Bryant, now Meyer versus Saban. Alabama 3-0 all-time against Ohio State. Give Ohio State, first of all, let's start with the fact that they're on their third quarterback. That's pretty amazing.
It's amazing. I mean, Gary, when you're talking about losing your #1 quarterback in August, I remember my initial reaction when I heard that Braxton Miller was done for the year before the season ever started was, well, there goes Ohio State's opportunity for a national championship. Then the guy steps in, J.T. Barrett, and steps in.
He was a Heisman Trophy candidate.
He was better than Braxton Miller, and now this guy comes in and he leads them to a 59-0 championship victory in the Big Ten game against Wisconsin. So, I mean, That's just a phenomenal coaching job that they've done on the offensive side of the ball to have a third guy ready to play at that level.
You know, this program is going to be very similar to Alabama's. Now, they're a little bit younger, only the third year for Meyer, but you know he's going to recruit top-level talent. You know he knows how to develop it. So it's not a surprise that they're at this point. Maybe a little bit of surprise that they're here this soon.
Yeah.
But, you know, top to bottom, I think Alabama's a better team, but Ohio State's certainly capable of winning the game.
Very capable. There's no question about it. I mean, they've got players on both sides of the ball. They've added speed. You know, that Ezekiel Elliott's an outstanding running back. He's had a big year for them. You know, you look on the defensive side, Joey Bosa's one of the top defensive linemen in the country. By the way, almost came to Alabama. A lot of people thought he was coming to Alabama, but he went to Ohio State, and he's been a dominant player there. They've got some really other good players. Adolphus Washington's another guy that was recruited by Alabama that some thought might come here, a defensive lineman. Michael Bennett, another one. You know, Curtis Grant, a linebacker. They've got Von Bell in the secondary.
Yeah.
These are all guys that Alabama recruited.
Well, Urban Meyer was in Florida. He knows where the players are, and that's the thing. They're going to be a Big Ten team that is going to mirror the SEC in terms of speed, in terms of athleticism. So, you know, maybe the Big Ten, but don't think about the big plodding, slow teams of the past in the Big Ten. You saw the particulars on the game. Of course, we're going to be there that week leading up to the game. We'll have coverage all week long here on WVUA TV. Well, Rodney, let's talk a minute about another outstanding coaching job by Nick Saban. I know this is crazy, but I think maybe he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. Think about this. Since he's been at Alabama, it's hard to fathom. He has not won the Bear Bryant Award yet, which blows my mind. But anyway, all the good jobs that he's done, I always thought 2008 was the best because I just didn't think Alabama should have been 12-0 that soon in his tenure here. But this season, the way he's pieced this team together, to have the courage to hire Lane Kiffin, to do all the things that he's done and get this team to this point, I think it's an incredible coaching job. I think he's done the best job of anybody in the country. He probably won't win the Bear Bryant Award again this year, but what a job, huh?
Incredible, no question about it. And you know, Gary, here's the thing. Last year when Alabama lost to Auburn, then followed it up with the loss to Oklahoma, everybody around the country said Alabama's run is over. They're done. And, you know, obviously Nick Saban practices what he preaches because they don't pay attention to external factors, because they certainly didn't pay attention to what all the pundits were saying. You know, Alabama comes back this year, a team with, you know, one of the least experienced teams in the country in terms of returning experience. You know, you have a quarterback that's thrown 39 passes he's been in the program for, you know, going on his 5th year. So you're talking about a lot of inexperience and, you know, some coaching changes. You know, you're coming off like you said, the historical run, winning 3 national championships in 5 years. And it's hard to kind of keep that momentum going.
Yeah.
But this team came together. And I think a lot of that, obviously, is because of what you talked about, Nick Saban, the changes he made, some of the things he did in the offseason, as well as I think that a key. I really think this team had that chemistry that's really hard to find. I think a lot of that started with Blake Sims.
Yeah, you know what's really sweet, I think, for Alabama fans is after the loss to Ole Miss, you heard it, Ole Miss is the best team in the country. Then Mississippi State's the best team in the country. No, Auburn's the best team in the country. Well, at the end of the day, Auburn's got 4 losses in the league. Ole Miss has got 3. Mississippi State's got 2. Alabama's got 1. And they're the team left standing in the playoff for the SEC.
Well,
that kind of says it all.
I think if you're Ole Miss and Mississippi State, who spent a few weeks at the top, you know, they've learned now. I think they should appreciate. Now, when they can look at Alabama and appreciate, say, hey, you know, it's one thing to be there 2 or 3 weeks, but what about 7 years? Yeah. I mean, you know.
Having been an underdog since the SEC championship game in 2009. Well, several recruits saw the Tide's big win in the SEC championship, and one of them went ahead and pulled the trigger and committed to the Crimson Tide on Monday. Former Florida commitment, 4-star linebacker Adonis Thomas. Rodney, tell us a little bit about this North Gwinnett High School product there in the Atlanta area, what he brings to the table as a football player.
I tell you what, Gary, he used to be a safety, so he's very athletic. You know, he's a guy that's 6'4", 220 pounds, probably, you know, talking about a guy that may max out at around 240, 250. So, you know, he's going to get bigger. He's going to maintain that speed. Again, he's one of these guys that when you play all these spread offenses, you know, you don't have to sub him out because he has ability to play the run, he has ability to play the pass, and he has all that great athletic ability. So, again, I think it's a big pickup. He's one of the top linebackers in the country. He'll play inside for Alabama. That's where he's ticketed to play. So, I just think it's a really big pickup. Again, originally committed to Florida.
Here's a look at the numbers. Again, as Rodney said, fast. Got to have speed.
Well, I'll tell you how fast. His high school coach, Todd Wofford, was an assistant coach at Gainesville High School in Georgia when Blake Sims was a quarterback there. We know how fast Blake is, right? He said at this point in his, maturity, that Adonis Thomas is already faster than what Blake was. So
that's incredible.
Tells you a little bit.
Quarterbacks, look out. Adonis Thomas is coming to the SEC, to a stadium near you. All right, still more to come on TITV. We'll look at the All-SEC Associated Press selections, how many Crimson Tide players are on the team. You'll find out. And next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, there's the information on the screen on how you can get in touch with us. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV will return right after this. The Associated Press released its All-SEC team yesterday, and as expected, Alabama led the way with 6 selections on the first team. Amari Cooper and Ari Kwanjo on offense, Jonathan Allen, Landon Collins, and Reggie Ragland on defense, and J.K. Scott as a freshman. First team AP All-SEC punter Blake Sims, Cyrus Jones, and Austin Shepard garnered second team recognition. And the coaches released their All-SEC teams today as well. Alabama led the way with 7 selections, 5 first-teamers, and 2 more selections on the second team. You see them right there on your screen. All right, let's head to the Med Center hotline, Rod, and take some calls. First up tonight, our good buddy CB right here in Tuscaloosa. CB, what's going on, pal?
Everything's kind of lovely, man. Y'all kind of hit on my little topic earlier there, but as you said, he got a new coordinator. The quarterback, Sim, just jumped fired in there, but another thing, we've had so many players hurt, and of course, we're high on Coach Smart, and defensive coach, but the secondary has been so shaky. So I tell you, this up until this point, this is pretty strong coaching all around.
I would agree with you, CB. I don't think there's an argument about that for many of us. And again, I think, Nick Saban, one thing he realized, Gary, was he needed to generate more offense. And he went out and he hired Lane Kiffin, and he certainly got that. And, we talked about all the offseason when people would call in and ask us about, Lane Kiffin. I kept referring back to 2009, the job he did with Jonathan Crompton at Tennessee, who was a complete disaster. Up to that point in his career, ended up throwing for 2,800 yards, 27 touchdowns that year, Gary. And then he comes back this year and he takes Blake Sims. And again, Blake had not had much experience. And, the season he's had, he's thrown for 3,200 yards, 26 touchdowns. He's ran for 6 or 7 more. So, a phenomenal job. Second team All-SEC. Really, who could have kind of dreamed that up before the season?
You couldn't have.
No.
And another thing, people forget about Major Applewhite. Nick Saban's had 4 offensive coordinators in 8 years at Alabama, so he can win with a lot of different styles on offensively, not just a pound and ground. He can do whatever it takes to win football games. Ability to adapt. All the great coaches can do it. Coach Bryant can do it, or Coach Bryant did it. Nick Saban can do it as well. All right, Ricky hung up on us, but he did get his question in before he hung up. Wanted to know about Ohio State. We've talked some about him already. I don't know specifically what he wanted to know, but as we said, we talked a lot about they're going through quarterbacks, their ability on offense. In fact, Tom Herman, their offensive coordinator, beat out Lane Kiffin today for the Broyles Award, but they also got a 1,400-yard rusher at tailback, so they can run the ball too.
Yep. Ezekiel Elliott's a guy, he had an 81-yard run against Wisconsin. I think he's an outstanding tailback. He has some speed. You mentioned that earlier. And I think they've got a receiver, Gary. He's going to be a great player. Devin Smith.
Worried about them throwing it up to him.
Yeah. He wears number 9. Looks a little bit like Amari, just from that number 9. But he's an explosive player. Made some big plays in the championship game the other night. And again, I think when you look at them, they've got some playmakers on that side of the ball.
Defensively, very athletic, as you alluded to, and Bosa. Some people have compared Joey Bosa to J.J. Watt, so that gives you some idea of what type of talent he has. All right, phone lines are open. More to come on TITV, including the names of the newest permanent captains for the 2014 season. They'll have their hand and footprints in the cement at Denny Chimes. We'll tell you who they are. And coming up, as I said, more phone calls, emails, and tweets. I know the season just ended for a couple of weeks until we get cranked back up, but hey, I know there's some people out there who want to talk Bama football, maybe Bama basketball. Give us a call right there at 205-348-9882. We'll be back with more of the show right after this. It's one of the greatest honors an Alabama football player can receive, being named a permanent captain. That means they'll be remembered forever as their hand and footprints will go on to the cement at Denny Chimes on 8A. The honorees this year, Landon Collins, Amari Cooper, Jelson Fowler, and Blake Sims. And, man, that's a lot of leadership right there, folks. In addition to being great players, but good people, great leaders. All right, Rod, let's head right back to the Med Center hotline and talk to Buddy in Northport. Hey, Buddy, how are you?
How are you?
Very well, sir.
Good. My question is why Alabama wore white uniforms in the SEC championship game, and I've noticed that's happened before in bowl games.
Yeah, well, you know, and I don't know the system. I know Auburn was the home team last year. They wore their blue, and I'm assuming because the West Division team was the home team. And again, I'm assuming this now. I have to check.
It goes by odd and even years.
Okay.
On even years, the East is going to be the home team on what are we, even this year? So that's why.
Yeah.
In 2014, so the East team was the home team this year.
So it's
odd
every year.
years.
Yeah. So next year the SEC West team will wear their home jerseys.
And he's probably asking, referring back to the national championship game against Notre Dame, why Alabama wore white. Well, Notre Dame was the #1 team, so they got to pick, you know, what jersey they wanted to wear.
And if you're wondering, Alabama will be wearing crimson in the Sugar Bowl against Ohio State, and they'll have that new Nike uniform. Don't worry, you know, they're not going to change it much, but swoosh will be a little bit different, and their undershirts will be all quotes. Just blended in.
They worry about the shoestrings around here.
Alabama football quotes on the undershirt. All right, real quickly, let's go to Birmingham and talk to Bill, who's been holding. Hey, Bill, how are you?
Hey, good afternoon or good evening. Yeah, my question is, what's the quarterback situation going to look like next year, other than Coker, and how is the recruiting going for the fella that was, I think, out of California, I believe, and
Blake Barnett,
and how is Bo Scarborough?
Yeah, Bill. Okay, we got it. We're a little short on time. First of all, Bo Scarborough, hoping that he's enrolled in January.
He's supposed to be here in January.
All right, quarterbacks, there's going to be a lot of them. I would have to think Coker will maybe be the inside track guy.
Jacob Coker, Alec Morris, obviously.
Bateman,
Cornwell, Blake Barnett, the freshman. You know, they'll all be here in the spring, so we'll get a better idea then.
And they're really, really high on Barnett. But they're high on all those guys. All those guys are here at Alabama because they're good players. All right, thanks for the phone calls. We'll be right back after this. Eddie Lacy versus Julio Jones. We had it last night. Monday Night Football, the Falcons at the Packers. Lacy did his thing, 106 yards, 2 scores, helped the Pack win 43-37. Well, what about Julio, Rod? 12 catches, 259 yards, and a touchdown. It still wasn't enough. All right, thanks to the locker room for our original Elephant Wear shirts. And you can see the program again tonight at 10:30. That's it. Good night.